In this video, I'll be sharing my starter Pokemon tier lists. Starter Pokemon tend to be a very hot topic when it comes to Pokemon. I've seen many videos where people talk about their opinions on starters. In this video, I'll be making 3 tier lists. The first one for the base starters, the second one for their second stages, and the third one for their final forms. I know a lot of people say this when making their videos, but I still want to clarify that these are my opinions. And if they're different from yours, that's okay. Now, the reasons I like certain Pokemon are due to their designs and concepts, along with how much I personally like them. Sometimes there's Pokemon that I think are objectively better than others, but I don't actually like very much for personal reasons. I can appreciate the point of their designs, but that doesn't mean I really like them. On the other hand, there's some Pokemon that may have a few flaws, but I simply like them because their design and concept is something I really like. My favorite Pokemon tend to have a combination of a great overall concept, design, and inspiration, while personally appealing to me for various reasons. To be clear, this is how the tier list works. The tier list is split into 2 halves, upper and lower tier. Lower tier is F, D, and C, while upper tier is B, A, and S. Basically, the closer a Pokemon is to their tier, the more it represents its tier. So in lower tier, the closer a Pokemon is to their tier, the worse it is. While in upper tier, the closer a Pokemon is to their tier, the better it is. Alright, now let's begin. Starting with the first tier list, the base form starters. No base form starters wind up in F tier, but in D tier is Chikorita. In my opinion, Chikorita is the worst base form starter. I think its design is pretty lazy. It's a very basic, very simple green blob. It doesn't look like a dinosaur, like its evolutions. If I never saw Chikorita's evolutions, I would never know what animal it's based on. And I think that starter Pokemon should be based on animals and look like those animals. Since Chikorita has a very simple design and doesn't look like an animal, in my eyes it lands in D tier. We jump into C tier as I talk about Quaxly. Now I don't think there's anything wrong with Quaxly's design. It's simply not my kind of Pokemon. Not that I hate the water type, but I like most other types more. Ducks aren't an animal that stand out to me. For these reasons, Quaxly is in C tier. After this, we jump into B tier, where there are many base form starters. Most Pokemon in general head to B tier. I want to make it clear that B tier isn't bad. It's full of Pokemon that I respect, but don't like that much, so I will mostly say positive things about them. Squirtle has a nice design. I think it's objectively a good Pokemon, but nothing about it stands out to me. I like the other Kanto starters more, but by itself, Squirtle is fine. Nothing about Torchic is bad. I think it's an overall good Pokemon, just not one that stands out to me. Although I've always thought that a baby chicken as a starter was a bit odd due to a chicken's reputation of being weak and cowardly. Torchic breaks the mold here, but I like starters with a balance of being cute and also cool and tough. They should have something about them that makes them a bit menacing in battle. Still, Torchic is fine, just not my cup of tea. Next is Oshawott. Now I think Oshawott is pretty cute, and it has some clever design aspects, like the shell on its stomach that it uses like a sword. I like some of its design choices, and I think its concept is pretty cool, but it has other design choices I'm not the biggest fan of. I don't want to sound too nitpicky, but I think detailed ears would be better. Its blue triangular ears aren't bad, but some more detailed ones may help it look more like an otter. It already looks like an otter, but the animal it's based on isn't as clear as other starters. Also, a smaller pink or black nose would be better. Honestly, its nose kinda looks like a clown nose. I don't really hate its nose, but I don't think it's fair that people throw shade at Popplio for having a large nose and being based on a clown, but they ignore Oshawott who has a big red nose. Tepig is fine. I think it looks cute and it's clearly a pig. I'll use this phrase a lot, especially for B tier Pokemon, that being, it's good for what it is. Sobble is neat. The new or salamander inspiration for this Pokemon works on a water starter, and I like having an amphibian be a water starter. Mudkip is cute and has a cool color scheme. Like Sobble, I think that the amphibian inspiration is neat. Turtwig has a nice design. It's never stood out to me, but I think it's a good Pokemon, and I'm glad so many people like it. Totodile is based on a cool animal and has a decent design. Now, I started to like it more when I was writing the script for this video. I realized that it actually has a pretty neat design and looks like a strong first stage starter with that jaw. It looks fairly mobile due to its bipedal stance and balanced proportions. I've just always liked Cyndaquil more, and I've seen the Johto starters as way too simple, which is why I didn't think Totodile was that good. But as a base starter, it's a pretty good Pokemon. Still in B tier for me, but it's higher in B tier than it used to be. Chespin is cute. Unlike its evolved forms, it has a nice shape that suits the chipmunk it's based on, and its grass hoodie is pretty cute. Froakie has a rather clever concept. It uses soapy bubbles that are clearly on its body, which is a cool aspect. Scorbunny is good for what it is. It's a bipedal rabbit that isn't too anthropomorphic. Although its small round eyes seem a bit odd, and I used to wish it had larger, more expressive eyes like other starter Pokemon, I think that choice in its art works for Scorbunny. And it's really not that strange because real world rabbits have small round eyes, so it makes sense. It only seemed a bit strange compared to the larger eyes on other starters. Poplio is pretty neat. I like its dark blue color and how it's based on a sea lion. Definitely a good member of the Alola starter trio. Chimchar is simply a little fire monkey with a small flame tail. It looks cute and agile, which I appreciate. Rowlet is pretty nice. Its round shape works for it, and a lot of people love its shape. Personally, I've never liked Rowlet that much, but it's definitely a good Pokemon, and I'm happy for the success it has. The last Pokemon in B tier is Sprigatito. Honestly, the way the grass type is incorporated into Sprigatito's design isn't very creative. It's just a cat which appears to be wearing a fur coat made of plants. However, it's a cute cat, which is a redeeming quality because I like cats. In A tier, we start with Fuecoco. Its colors and overall design look great. Fuecoco is simply a cute and cool Pokemon. Next is Trico. Trico has cool inspiration, being based on a wood gecko, which is a cool animal. Trico looks cool and mobile, like an animal that can climb trees and other things like rocks. Its face and eyes give it a cool, calm facial expression. After Trico is Cyndaquil. Cyndaquil looks very cute, and I don't always want to judge Pokemon based on how cute or ugly they are, but I really have to admire Cyndaquil's cuteness. Its closed eyes and long snout make it look kinda like a baby anteater, which is adorable. Piplup is a neat baby penguin. I like its colors, and the dark blue thing looks like a cool piece of clothing. Plus, its white dots look like buttons, leading up to this Pokemon's a great final form using a great base state. Bulbasaur is a great Pokemon. I've always liked how, apart from Rowlet, it's the only dual type base starter. Bulbasaur is such a great grass type, and it looks like an actual fusion of a plant and an animal, unlike some other grass starters that are just animals that are green and have leaves on their bodies. I'm not trying to put starters like Sprigatito and Rowlet to shame, but I really appreciate how well Bulbasaur crosses a plant and an animal. Grookey is one of my favorite base form starters. It's like a fusion of the cool tree climbers Trico and Chimchar. Grookey is also very cute, and it's based off a squirrel monkey, which is a small cute monkey. On top of this, Grookey has a great concept, being based on a drum player, with the twig in its hair and the trope of monkeys hitting rocks with logs and twigs. This Pokemon's design and concept really appeals to me. After Grookey is Fennekin. Fennekin has great inspiration, being based on a fennec fox. The fire type is my favorite starter type, so being a fire fox is pretty cool. Last in A tier is Litten. Litten is great. I think it's a very neat cat Pokemon, and the fire type makes it cool. The black and red color scheme is great, plus the large semi-circle shaped yellow eyes look awesome on this Pokemon and go really well with the rest of its colors. The first Pokemon in S tier is Snivy. Snivy is great. Despite its arms and legs, it still looks like a snake with its long body and head shape. Its sleek design makes it look flexible. Its bright green color along with the yellow and beige underside look great. Snivy is a Pokemon that appears to have a lot of personality. In the Pokédex entries and the anime, Snivy is described as smug and arrogant. I like its confident personality. Snivy's personality sharpens how cool this Pokemon is, and it's already really cool. Finally, Charmander is at the top of S tier. Although I almost like Snivy as much, Charmander wins by a bit. Its design is simple, but not too simple. Even though newer fire starters are more colorful with more complex designs, Charmander is a really good fire starter that represents the fire type really well. I think it's cute and tough and cool at the same time, which is really great for a first stage starter. Now we reach the tier list for the middle stage starters. At the bottom of F tier is Quilladin. I really dislike Quilladin because it seems like Chespin could have had a far better evolution. I get the concept of being around Chestnut, but I think its design could have been executed a lot better. It could have been a tough chipmunk with a chestnut chest plate, or it could have had tough back plates. I drew some fan art of how I think Quilladin should look. This drawing seems the most practical, as it fits in with the warrior aesthetic that Chestnut is going for. It has a chest plate, and the hoodie that Chespin has been turned into a helmet, and the leaves kinda look like a sword. I drew these other depictions of how I think Quilladin should look and took inspiration from another artist. In this one, Quilladin has a more anteater or pangolin-like appearance, kinda like Sandshrew and Sandslash, with the long nose. Although it doesn't look as much like Chespin as the other drawing I did, it has a pretty interesting design as it rolls into a ball, or rather a tire, similar to Donphin, rather than what Quilladin actually is and just being the ball. Overall, I think Quilladin could have had a much more creative design than it has. There is one other middle stage starter in F tier, which is Combusken. Combusken is simply very awkward and looks strange. I know fans of the Torchic line cut it some slack, but I've never been a fan of the Torchic line, which is why it's a lot easier for me to flame this Pokemon. We skip D tier and head to C tier to talk about Croconaw. Croconaw looks a bit odd, with the teeth leaving and protruding from its jaw and the toga-like pattern on its body. Nothing's wrong with it. It looks aggressive and feral, which is the point. It's simply not my kind of Pokemon. Quaxwell feels a bit odd to me. As I'll say many times, it's good for what it is, but it seems like an uncomfortable, slightly humanoid duck. I think humanoid Pokemon are good if the design is executed well, and honestly, Quaxwell's design is executed well. I just don't like it much. I hope no one is very offended by this take, but I just never liked Wartortle. I've never gravitated towards the Squirtle line, and I think Wartortle being a turtle that has hair is a bit strange. That's okay, because this is Pokemon. The creatures can have strange and fantastical elements that the real-world counterparts don't have. Even if some turtles and or tortoises have hair, that doesn't change my opinion on Wartortle. Drizzile seems like a Pokemon that's literally made to be awkward. It's like a sad teenager, which is kind of what it's based on. Now, a lot of people say that middle stage starters tend to be awkward and be going through a weird teenage phase. And I'll say that, yeah, some middle stage starters are awkward, but the only one that actually seems like it's based off of an awkward teenager is Drizzile. I get that's what the point of Drizzile's design is, but I don't like it that much. I don't hate it, like, it's kind of uncomfortable, but it's not that bad, and for me it's just in C tier. Last in C tier is Pignite. A lot of people don't like Pignite because it's a fat middle stage evolution, and it's the third firefighting starter in a row. They often compare Quilladin to Pignite, but I don't dislike Pignite. While Quilladin's rotund shape doesn't make a lot of sense, Pignite is a pig, so it makes sense and it feels natural. I get it's made to look like it's wearing a wrestling suit, but unlike some other fighting types, this black coloration is part of its skin, so it feels more natural, unlike Pokemon such as Sock and Throw, who are literally wearing clothes that really don't seem like a part of their body. At the bottom of B tier is Brionne. I've never had a problem with Brionne. A lot of people don't like it, but I think it's fine. After Brionne, there is Marshtomp. It's a decent Pokemon. I've never seen it as particularly cool, but it's good for what it's made to be, a middle evolution. Crocodile is fine. Although when I first saw Fuecoco, I thought it looked like Sandile and hoped its evolutions would be like Crocorock and Crocodile, but Crocodile is fine. I like the fiery bird's nest hat, and it has some of the qualities that make Fuecoco cool. I like the white skull face that leads up to its final evolution well. Bayleaf is pretty neat. It incorporates the long-necked dinosaur with the plant elements fairly well. This isn't about Chikorita, but if Chikorita wasn't a starter, I think its line would make more sense. Because Chikorita is like Oddish in that it's pretty much a plant with a face on it, which makes more sense for a wild Pokemon. But Chikorita aside, Bayleaf is neat. Next is Grotto, which has a fine design. It's a decent in-between of Turtwig and Torterra. I've never gravitated towards that line of Pokemon, but I think they're good Pokemon. Grovyle is kinda cool. Its long blade of grass on its head and the grass on its wrists and the two blades of grass that make up its tail are pretty neat. Its colors and body shape make it kind of look like a small predatory dinosaur. It's neat. Dartrix seems to get a lot of hate, and I've never disliked Dartrix. I think the unsymmetrical leaves on its head give it a cool hairstyle. A lot of people say it's awkward, but I don't think the hairstyle inspiration is that bad. Besides, Staraptor does the same thing. Overall, I think Dartrix is a well-designed grass-typed barn owl Pokemon. Monferno is a nice fire monkey Pokemon. The fire on the tip of its tail represents the type well, and its mask and colorful patterns look cool. Prinplup is a fine middle stage evolution. Some people say it's awkward like a lot of starters, but honestly, it looks just like a penguin to me. Yes, Combusken also looks just like a chicken, but I explained why Combusken is where it is. Prinplup is simpler. It's pretty much just a blue penguin. I know there's more to its design and concept, but appearance-wise, I don't think this Pokemon looks bad. Last in B tier is Torcat. I'll admit that Torcat doesn't seem like a great evolution to Litten. It kinda just gets bigger with more fur, brighter colors, and a bell below its neck. I think it might have been cooler as a bipedal Puss in Boots cat like Florigado, but by itself, Torcat is fine. Speak of the devil, first in A tier is Florigado. Florigado is pretty cool. It's bipedal, but not very humanoid, and its flower yo-yo is pretty neat. Cats are one of my favorite animals because they are sneaky, quick, and overall skilled animals. Florigado embodies these traits while having a notable personality. It strikes a perfect balance of being bipedal and intelligent without being too humanoid. Next is Quilava. Quilava is based on some kind of large mustelid, probably a honey badger. I'm a bigger fan of smaller mustelids like stoats and weasels, hence a fire-type line of fake mon I made that's based on stoats and ermines. Nonetheless, Quilava is pretty cool. I like the sharp flames that come out of its body. I think Typhlosion could have been electric type and could have had more vibrant electrical colors that complemented its spiky fire. Still, this line of Pokemon being pure fire type is cool, and I made an electric fire type starter, Zerkettle, anyway. I think as the in-between of Cyndaquil and Typhlosion, Quilava is both cute and cool. I like Grookey more than Thwackey, but Thwackey still makes it into A tier. I think it's still a pretty cool monkey, and the drumsticks are cool that it puts in its hair, and the leaf mohawk and all those aspects are pretty awesome. Rabu is great. It incorporates the clothes and athletic gear into its design while still looking natural. Its hoodie, pockets, snood, and headband look pretty awesome. Raboot's rebellious phase, personally, actually isn't that weird. I think it works well with this Pokemon that's based on a young athlete. Ivysaur has all the things that make Bulbasaur great. It's just a bit bigger with a cool flower on its back, so I don't need to spend a lot of time explaining why I like it. Dua is a great middle stage starter. It's sleek with its whiskers and hairs make it look more like an otter than Oshawott. Its double shells are pretty cool, and so I like this Pokemon a lot. Frogadier is great. Its sleekness and dark blue color is awesome. It still has the white foam around its neck like Froakie, which is neat. It looks slick and agile. That's pretty awesome. Servine has all the great things about Snivy, although it's honestly less interesting than Snivy or Superior. But that can be excused as it's a middle stage starter, and does that perfectly, by being the in-between of Snivy and Superior. Now we hit S tier. First is Charmeleon. Charmeleon is an awesome evolution to Charmander. Its horn or whatever the back thing on its head is, along with its red skin and huge claws, make this Pokemon look like a really tough animal. Finally, Braixen is my favorite middle stage starter. Alright, so I know Braixen is humanoid, which I have said can be strange, but Braixen isn't that humanoid. Sure, it has long legs, skinny arms, and wears a fur skirt. On top of this, it wields a torch, which is a very human thing to do. But all of this can be excused, because it still looks like a fox. Alright, it looks pretty different from a fox that's just standing up, but its unique proportions work for this Pokemon. I don't think it's an insane cross between a human and a fox. Braixen is its own thing. It's not literally just a person with a fox's head. Anyway, the reason I like Braixen so much is because of its witch fox concept along with the torch. Its torch is nearly as long as a spear, which is pretty awesome. The torch can double as a staff-like tool, which I really like. Braixen is a fire fox that wields a really cool weapon. In my opinion, its human aspects aren't as bad as people make them out to be. It has more pros than cons. At last, this is the final stage starter tier list. I don't want to catch a lot of heat for this, because my least favorite fully evolved starter is a very popular Pokemon. That being said, my least favorite fully evolved starter is a Pokemon in D tier. It's Blaziken. A lot of people like Blaziken, but I used to really not see the appeal. I mean, it's based on a rooster, but hardly looks like one, at least in my eyes. Now I see why people like it, because it's a fiery fighter, a strong Pokemon that embodies its types well. But I'm still surprised by its popularity. The reason I don't like Blaziken is because I don't think it looks like a chicken. Sure, it has a beak and talons that remind me of a chicken, but it's pretty humanoid. Its build is pretty similar to a human, with knees that bend forward and slightly shorter arms. When I first saw Blaziken, I thought it was based on a rabbit because of the long ear-like body parts behind its head. But I was super young, so I hope that can be excused. Anyway, chickens aren't really an animal that I'm super fond of or stand out to me or I see as really cool. So a Pokemon based off a chicken isn't something that stands out to me, and I just think that Blaziken is a bit odd. Anyway, I spent a lot of time talking about Blaziken, so yeah, that's why it's my least favorite fully evolved starter. In my eyes, Quaquaval isn't a bad Pokemon. I mean, neither is Blaziken. Neither of them are really my cup of tea. They're both fine, but I just don't like either of them. Anyway, Quaquaval is humanoid to a degree that I really respect. It has human qualities while still mostly resembling a duck. On top of this, Quaquaval's bright colors are nice. But like I said, ducks aren't an animal that stand out to me. Also, I mentioned how I'm not interested in the fighting type, and how the water type is my least favorite starter type. Even though Quaquaval is a fighting type, it doesn't seem to have an aggressive or menacing personality. As I said, it's good for what it is, I just don't like it. After this, we jump into C tier. Chestnut's design isn't that bad, but I don't like it. In my favorite Pokemon of every type video, I said that the fighting type is my second least favorite type. That's because I'm not a huge fan of Pokemon that have very similar fighting styles to humans. Honestly, at this point the fighting type is my least favorite type. Not that I hate fighting types, I just like every other type more. I barely talked about Chestnut. Overall, I just think its design execution isn't very great. Being hunched over with long noodly limbs makes this Pokemon look kind of flimsy and not as strong as other fighting types despite its large appearance. Next in C tier is Meowscarada. Meowscarada is very humanoid. Its long legs and arms make it look like it's a person in a costume. Unlike Quaquaval, it's not humanoid in the right way. If it was simply a cat with human properties while still basically being a cat, its design execution would be good. Floragato is fine. It looks like a cat that's just standing up and has opposable thumbs like Meowth. However, Meowscarada is too anthropomorphic. At the bottom of B tier, there's Meganium. Meganium is simple, but I don't dislike anything about it. Yeah, it's too simple, but still, nothing about Meganium is that bad. Feraligatr has a fair design. It looks like a strong, powerful animal, and nothing's bad about it. But similar to the other Johto starters, there's not a lot about it that's very interesting, and not a lot about it that stands out to me. So it's in B tier. Blastoise is objectively a good Pokemon. As the first water starter, this Pokemon has a nice concept, being a powerful turtle with water cannons. Nothing about its design is lazy, although as I've said for the Squirtle line, it's never stood out to me. Samurott is alright. I know a lot of people like it, but I think something closer to Duat would have been cooler. A bipedal otter that uses sword shells would have been great. But there's nothing wrong with Samurott. To be fair, it does look like a sea lion, and its swords are pretty cool. Emboar gets a lot of hate that it doesn't deserve. Sure, it was the third fire fighting starter in a row, but Emboar has a great design. Its patterns look great, and the fire around the neck shows off the fire type pretty well. Also, I think I know why there are so many firefighting starters. I think because caves tend to be an important area in the games that the player will have to go through. And of course, caves contain many rock-type Pokemon that grass and water types are strong against, but fire types are weak to, giving the other starters an advantage compared to the fire-type ones. But with the fighting type, the fire starters can be strong against rock-type Pokemon just like the other starters in their trio. Anyway, yeah, Emboar is good. Not a Pokemon that I personally love, but I acknowledge its great design. A lot of people think Inteleon is weird, and I see where they're coming from. It's never stood out as creepy or off-putting to me. I think its inspiration is fine. I just see this Pokemon as average. Swampert objectively has a really good design. It's clearly a powerful animal, and the blend of colorful orange spikes and bumps against the blue skin and fins works really well. I think it's objectively a great Pokemon, but nothing about it personally makes me like it a lot. A lot of people don't like Primarina. To me, nothing about Primarina is bad. It's very feminine, and I get that this was the point. I also get that saying something is the point doesn't justify calling someone's negative opinions on something bad. I think Primarina is objectively a good Pokemon, and there's nothing I dislike about it. At the same time, there's nothing I really like about it, so Primarina is in B tier. Sceptile is another Pokemon I think is pretty good, but has no properties that stand out to me enough for me to really like it. Last in B tier is Torterra. Torterra has a fantastic design. At first, I didn't appreciate this Pokemon much. I didn't dislike it, but other Sinnoh starters stood out to me more. Tortoises aren't a favorite animal of mine, so I used to overlook this Pokemon. But now I really think its art and design execution is great. It looks big and powerful and represents the grass and ground type really well. I'm happy for all the success this starter has. Now we reach A tier. First is Typhlosion. Typhlosion looks fierce, and the way its fire around the neck is spiky and a lot more erratic than other fire types makes this Pokemon look like an aggressive predator. Those aspects make me personally like it. However, I honestly think that just like the other Johto starters, it's pretty simple. I think a lot of B tier Pokemon are objectively better than Typhlosion, but I like Typhlosion a fair amount due to the aspects it embodies that appeal to me. Skeleturge is pretty neat. It's colorful and vibrant, expressing its fire and ghost type well. Honestly, like I said with Crocodile, I kinda wish it became a bipedal Pokemon similar to Crocodile, but it's good for what it is. Overall, I like it. Infernape is my favorite fighting type. However, as I've mentioned, I'm not very fond of the fighting type, but I like the fire type a lot. Infernape is pretty cool. With its long arms, legs, and tail, this Pokemon looks like a real New World monkey. On top of that, the metallic ornaments combined with the fire hair look pretty great. It represents both its types well, being a strong and agile fire monkey. I used to not like Cinderace much, but I like the athletic inspiration it has. It's not too anthropomorphic. Alright, I'll admit, it looks a lot like a person, but its pre-evolutions are also bipedal, so it doesn't feel as weird. To me, it still feels like a rabbit more than a human, and I like how it incorporates the sports inspiration in the design through colorful tufts of fur. Rillaboom is pretty neat. It has human traits like the hair, the drum, but since people and gorillas are pretty similar, this Pokemon gets away with those aspects with hardly any fan backlash for being humanoid. Personally, I think the drum is cool, and combined with the bush hair, this Pokemon looks like a stylish drummer that works well as an animal. Venusaur is great. Its classic design is awesome. A powerful animal with a pretty pink flower on its back is great. As I said with its pre-evolutions, it combines plants and animals in a good way to make this Pokemon. Empoleon has great inspiration. Although water types don't stand out to me much, this Pokemon's water steel typing is great because of the icebreaker ship inspiration. Plus, it melds water and steel perfectly. Its colors are awesome: black, white, dark blue, and other metallic colors. Empoleon is a very metallic and awesome Pokemon. Decidueye is next. The hooded Ultratrope combined with owls, which are kind of known to be spooky animals, is great for this Pokemon. It's my favorite ghost type and overall a great Pokemon. I like Decidueye a lot, however I picked Litten when playing Pokemon Ultra Moon, my Alola playthrough, hence Incineroar beating Decidueye by one spot. I'll admit, it's humanoid and I see why some people don't like it. But I can completely look past that because Incineroar's design shows this powerful Pokemon. Incineroar looks like a powerful fighter. It looks tough and strong. This Pokemon clearly depicts Pokemon's action-packed battling. Well, more so in the show, even though I know this Pokemon is great in competitive video game battling. However, I don't pay attention to that. Incineroar also has the best possible type combination for me with starters. It's a fire type, my favorite type out of the starter trio types, and a dark type, which is my favorite overall type. Now, my favorite Pokemon Houndoom has the same type combination, so this doesn't make me want my favorite starter to be one with that same type combination. My favorite starter is a fire type, combined with one of my second favorite types. Anyway, Incineroar is awesome. Serperior is great. Snakes are one of my favorite animals. Serperior has such a good design and its design kind of reflects its vain personality. Plus, its name is literally superior, which really sells its attitude. Now we reach S tier. First is Greninja. I know this pick for S tier is very basic. Because this Pokemon is so beloved, I don't pay much attention to it. People have already said everything cool about it, so I don't think about Greninja much. This often makes me think I like it a lot less than I actually do. When I actually pay attention to Greninja, I see that this Pokemon is awesome. It has such a lean and sleek design. The dark blues and pink tongue scarf clash well with the light blue bumps that seem like they're glowing. Overall, a great Pokemon. Next in S tier is another very basic pick, Charizard. I know this Pokemon has a simple design, but it looks powerful. Like Incineroar, it's clearly a strong Pokemon. I won't beat around the bush. The main reason it's cool is because it's a dragon. I think dragons are pretty cool, and the closest starter to a classic European dragon is Charizard. Sure, it's not dragon type, but its Mega X form gives it the dragon type. I like its Mega X form more, but I also think its Mega Y form is really underrated because Mega Charizard X overshadows it. It's so spiky. It's leaner than Charizard with bigger wings and more spikes. Anyway, yeah, Charizard is pretty cool. Last is a very controversial Pokemon. It's Delphox. I don't want to get too much hate for putting Blaziken in D tier, then putting Delphox in A tier. My opinions on starters are pretty different from a lot of people. So, talking about Delphox, it's a great Pokemon. People say it's off-putting and creepy, and maybe they're tired of hearing this, but that's the point. If people don't like it for those reasons, then I don't think it's a bad Pokemon. It's based on a witch, which are known to be creepy, especially Western Halloween witches. People say the cloak made of its hair is weird, but Grimmsnarl does something pretty similar, and that Pokemon gets a lot of love. I actually think Delphox and Grimmsnarl are a bit similar. They're both based on fairy tale creatures and are made to be a bit strange. Also, Delphox isn't too anthropomorphic in my opinion. Unlike Meowscarada, it kinda just looks like a bipedal animal. The fact that it's fluffy makes it look more like a wild animal. Like, just one that's standing up. It doesn't have the proportions that are super similar to a human. Or maybe the fur is just hiding that. Anyway, I think it combines Fennec Foxes and the Mage very well. The Psychic type is my second favorite type, although I said it was my third favorite and my favorite Pokemon of every type video. At this point, it's my second favorite. I think it represents both types very well. Alright, so those are my starter Pokemon tier lists. Thanks for watching.